take a picture with them? There's two. Live from the field with yours truly, Invest with Russ.
once you speak in it, you see it's reacting. One, 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 one. Also, this has to be on as well. So that's.
I'm never doing an event without you ever again. So
Okay.
talk to Doc earlier. What'd you say? That's on. Like this is on. Yeah. And this is off. Yeah. Testing. 1, 2, testing.
Yeah, where's it going? Oh, the world?
Just no, just for us.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll reuse at some point.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Testing. Is this a cult?
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. Mike, welcome back to Launch House.
Is this supposed to work?
This does work. It won't broadcast.
Oh, good.
Instead, it will quietly record us for the podcast that we're secretly recording tonight.
Excellent.
No. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me
We,
and for displaying my true likeness.
I know. You know, I actually have a gift for you. I turned this into a fat
GIF
head.
or a
I turned
gift?
this into a fat head, and I left it at the house, and it's not here tonight. But I want to gift that to you.
Okay.
Big fan. We got reconnected because I was kind of putting some feelers out there on the internet a couple days ago in search of the most founder-friendly Web3 investors in New York, and your name came up like 25 times. Like,
They
it's
just
amazing.
run
Like,
roughshod over me.
What's that
Yep,
all about?
the founders.
Like, you're a former founder yourself. Like, do you think that has a little bit to do with it? Like, where's
Yeah.
this love and support for?
And should I
founders come
hold this
from?
close to me, or
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I think, yeah, the founder-friendly nature comes from a couple things. One is, I'm not to speak too highly of myself, but an ebullient, outgoing, gregarious, friendly personality. And I enjoy working with other people who, I kind of like find simpatico, okay? So I'm always seeking out, as an investor, as somebody who's starting companies, as places I'm working at, people who, are generally like have that spirit, vibe, to use a overused Web3 word. And by the way, drink every time I say Web3. And so anyway, but I'm not like some like soft teddy bear. So I can also be very feisty. Like if you follow me on Twitter, I have some bite. And if I believe that people are not authentic, are not being fair, are being intellectually dishonest, are being in the context of a company or a partnership, aren't pulling their weight, I'm very direct and I think very fair to the negative side, meaning, hey, like, you're not doing X, Y, Z, let's turn that around, or, it's probably not going to work out. And when it doesn't work out, very decisive about saying that and letting somebody go or making a difficult decision or just saying no. And so I think that when people say founder friendly, what they generally mean is, and this doesn't happen enough in the world, they generally mean, hey, somebody who's just like honest with me. Like if I do a good thing, like, so they generally mean somebody with a default positive outlook and spirit and optimistic and wants things to work and isn't looking for a way for things to fail, whether it be a company or relationships, a market, you name it. And then, hey, is going to tell me if it's starting to not work, what might change that. And if it is working, is going to really just support me and not put their own ego, their own like perspective on how this thing should happen, into my everyday and look over my back and pressure me and yada, yada, yada. And like, hey, try and basically thrust their business model or point of view on the world and how things should work on me. They're just going to let me do, the thing that's working. And so, I know there's a really long answer. I don't know. I had a glass of wine and long walk and I was like sweating and I was like, I'm just going to get going here with this answer. So I think the reason people call me founder friendly is, in summation, fair, direct, honest, a person of my word, and an optimistic supporter of innovative people, things, technology, markets, you name it.
I want to cover.
That was a great sales pitch for myself. Let's talk about some. Sorry, shit.
I want to cover a lot of ground tonight, but like you've known about the Launch House community even longer than I have, and I've been with the company employee number 2. So you've been around the block and been paying attention to what we've been building for a while now. I'm curious when it comes to founder friendliness and community. Like, what is it, do you think, that the 25 people living in Launch House this month can be doing to best support each other along their founder journeys? There's a lot of things that founders go through that a lot of other people can't necessarily understand because they're not also founders themselves. What do you think the founders in Launch House this month can be doing over the next 30 days to learn from one another or support each other?
Great question. So I would probably, it's hard for me, having not lived in a Launch House and having not gone through a similar experience, to answer that extremely specifically. So I would probably back up to frameworks and say, what helps make early stage projects, some are projects, some are full-fledged startups, some are teams, I'm sure some are individuals, what makes them successful? And then living in close quarters, how can you accelerate the success of that? And living within, the brand of Launch House, which, I'm a biased believer in as an investor, but would not have invested if I didn't think there was special sauce to what is happening here. So the first is I would look to the sort of granddaddy of them all, Y Combinator. And so one thing you can do is you can start, so you just addressed the first one. You're around other founders who understand you. I think having a default, and I hope this is part of like the entry and the orientation, having a default, we can talk to folks about virtually anything that's within like, morally acceptable and rules acceptable relations about like our deepest, startup related fears, concerns, optimism, you name it, euphoria within a trusted environment. So I think accepting the trust of others and then giving it back to them is number one, because having those deep trusted conversations when you're confused and those formative moments of a startup, I've been there, trust me, is one of the most important things on earth. And you're going to talk to your family, you're going to talk to mentors, but people like you just said who are going into it alongside you, that's everything. So I've done that, with founders elsewhere who I wasn't living with. So that's number one. Two is obviously, references and character references. So really earnestly trying to develop friendships, because what we're going to need and what I look for example, as an investor in pre-seed and seed stage companies is character references, is, evidence that people are to be trusted, are who they say they are, work hard, et cetera, et cetera. So, can develop that sort of default open nature. You're living in a house for a reason. You decide not to go build this like by yourself, living on an island for a reason, I assume, and it was to be around others. So use that to your advantage. The next is customers. So I think the Y Combinator secret, the reason Stripe succeeded is they had like 100, look, they're geniuses, sorry. One of the many reasons Stripe succeeded so quickly was that they had built-in customers from the Y Combinator network. So I would earnestly support, the folks not only in your existing cohort, but who have come before and after, and the broader network of investors. So please, somebody like me, reach out to me, whether it's directly or through the Launch House team, to ask questions, to, if you want, don't overdo it. Don't, ask me for 15 customers from our portfolio, but like, hey, if there's one or two companies that we're invested in, they're exciting, I'll tell you if I can help you connect to them. So do that with your fellow folks that you're working with, because those early customers are the most important thing. I think trade non-confidential information about just the market. Hey, what's happening in the market? Hey, you're raising, I'm raising. I'm trying to think of some others, but I probably don't need to over-answer those questions. Those are just some things that I would say, but just openness is the biggest, I think, and openness, confidentiality, and taking advantage of that closeness in that network, because these things are all about people, particularly at the earliest stages.
So we've got 25 Web3 founders living in the house.
Woo! I'm not leaving until I get like 10 people who are gonna accept my money. So, yeah.
That makes some people happy.
I only have $200 in my wallet, but that's all right.
So we hosted a talk last night. I'm not going to ask everyone to raise their hand again, but pretty much like unanimously, everyone in the cohort will be raising in the next 6 to 12 months. And so want to spend some time tonight talking about fundraising, raising your first round, raising in the wild world of Web3. So to kind of kick things off, want to learn a little bit more about Sixth Man. Would love to learn about how you guys got started, what the thesis is, what types of checks you guys typically write, just kind of like the highlights, and then we can kind of dive in a little bit deeper.
Perfect, and dive in deeper on how folks here can raise, because I want to be helpful with that. Okay, perfect. So just quickly about me and the firm. So Mike Dudas, absolute boomer, 43 years old. Brought my gym clothes here, as you can tell. Walked over. I'm like dying, sweating from walking over. But hey, thank you for having me. So I'm sort of an accidental VC. Angel invested for a long time. Spent the first 10 years of my career working in media and entertainment. Started at Disney and Corp Dev, ended at YouTube, and then transitioned into fintech. I was at Google working on YouTube, transitioned to Google Wallet, then Venmo, and then started my first company actually after having our first kid at 34. So it was called Button, raised 65 million, hasn't exited yet, but successful company, not a unicorn, but very successful, profitable, tens of millions in revenue. Caught the crypto bug in 2018. And you'll get why I'm telling you the story. Caught the crypto bug in 2018, started another company called The Block, which is a crypto media research and information business. And the reason I started that is because I could not be a technical founder. I'm not technical in crypto, and I would ask people questions that I thought would have simple answers about Bitcoin or Ethereum or smart contracts or ICOs, and I get 10 different answers. So started The Block to help people answer some of those straightforward questions. And so basically, point is just sort of followed my interests, learned a lot, and continue to do that. By the way, started The Block when we had our second kid. So I haven't planned this stuff out. So as you know, doing anything in life, including fundraising, including starting companies, it's hard to plan. You just do it when you get the passion. So the first thing there is it's pretty clear to people like me, like an investor and somebody who's been an entrepreneur and is doing another startup called LinksDAO right now, when somebody really cares deeply about the thing they're building, and that's going to 5x my interest in investing in you. But anyway, so The Block, wonderful company. I sold it because I literally saw so many ideas in crypto that I wanted to work on and work with people on, as opposed to report on or research. So anyway, we started Sixth Man last year, and it was a small fund, $7.5 million, put 100K checks into a bunch of companies, including Launch House. And our pitch, we were entrepreneurial. I'd never been a VC before. We raised from the people we could. So another thing about fundraising, raising for VC, having never been a VC at 42 years old, you're over the hill in terms of when you should be able to switch careers. But again, point being, you never are. We sought out people who we'd develop relationships with over our career, and we raised checks from family and friends and people we'd met. Anyway, because we developed goodwill, we were able to meet wonderful people and then invest in Launch House. And what we did to find great companies, which again is similar to finding great customers for you, is we looked for referrals. So a lot of the things I was saying in my last answer pretty deeply. So $7.5 million fund, and our pitch was PR, communications, marketing are the ways that we can help you. We're a small minnow. We're separate, different than A16Z, who led Launch House's last round. But we're very complementary to what they do. And I'd argue, per dollar, I don't want to, we help as much as any investor on any cap table. But A16Z, they're LPs in our fund, Chris and Mark, and they're wonderful people. But we all play our different roles. So point is, pound for pound, we like to say, and you should as somebody raising money, really call out your authenticity, what's special about you, and how you're going to help. So Raised that fund, deployed it in like 9 months because it was a bull market. And here's the thing. I had started multiple companies and they'd had good outcomes, but it had been like 8 years of my life. And like good outcomes, like not unicorn outcomes, but good ones. And it had been fun and I met meaningful people and had a wonderful time. We spent 1 year investing and, we'll see how the outcomes are, but like Launch House is literally one of 70 companies we invested $100,000 into. And like the others are like Steppen, which we invested in at a $15 million valuation, Magic Eden, which we invested in at $30 million valuation. This was in like 9 months. And the reason I tell you this is I was not a VC. I wasn't an expert. It just happened. You find yourself in a certain place in time and you have a set of experiences and you say, hey, I'm going to put those experiences to work, or my knowledge or my relationships or whatever it is. And if I do that enough times, it's all going to come together. And that's what 6am Ventures has been for us. So it came together with that fund. And then because we were able to deploy into all these incredible companies, Etherscan, Rainbow Wallet, I could go on, we ended up earning the trust of larger investors, and we raised a $145 million fund. Woo! So now we're, and I do want to turn this, I want to take questions soon about not me, but I just keep talking, so I apologize. To wrap this up, the lesson was basically happened fast, bull market, raised a big fund. By the way, I had to re-raise it and re-raise it because we turned into a bear market and everybody started blowing up and all the people who committed to the fund couldn't fund their commitments. By the way, this happened to startups. We saw this. So just know that you're not the only ones going through your own problems in a bear market. Like everybody is going through these problems in a bear market. We finally closed the fund, but had to go through a process similar to a founder to close our VC fund. By the way, that then becomes a challenge for your ability to service and help and support your founders, right? So we went through a 2-month period where you're in a bear market, just making sure you can survive. You can do you're well funded to do a great job moving in the future. We did that. We are proud of it, and we've invested this year $25 million into about 25 companies, so about $1 million a company check. We write checks $500K to $3 million, pre-seed, seed, and a little bit of A. We lead and co-lead seed rounds. Unsure whether I should still say Web3, drink. Unclear whether we should call ourselves Web3 investors, but we're basically early stage investors in companies, protocols, and projects in the crypto space. And that's increasingly broadly defined. And we're most interested not in how like the company or the project or the protocol defines itself, but does it use the technology we're talking about? So blockchains for open, permissionless access and innovation, NFTs for interesting identity, metadata, and other use cases. And I just encourage all of you as you're talking and thinking about your companies to mix in some buzzwords because there's a lot of dumb VCs out there, but also to make sure that you're really using the technology for a reason and not doing things with your company that are where you're just trying to fit a model of like, hey, I need a token, or hey, I need to use this buzzword.
You mentioned something about passion. Like you mentioned something about like spotting someone with passion, like 5x is your interest or something like that. Now, that's like definitely not something I want like anyone at Launch House to fake, but how do you spot passion in someone?
Yeah, so, and by the way, that's a really good one. So I'm also know the person, so when you're raising, because I think your original question was actually like, hey, a lot of folks are fundraising, and then you asked about 6am Ventures, but I think one of the most important things is just how to raise. So I guess like you could, so what you'll find is that partnerships, the best venture capital partnerships are diverse in their perspective. And so you might be able to fake passion with me because I'm default, like I'm the thing I'm looking for is like that energy. But I have partners who are extremely dispassionate and don't fall for it. And we'll just be like asking, like, they'll just be throwing you off with like glass-eyed questions. Like wonderful, but this is not playing a part, but like that's just how they think and process. I forget the question.
Well,
I think I had an answer constructed that
you
I
can
was.
answer one of two
I was like, it's
questions.
hard to
You were
fake
about steer
passion.
the conversation in the direction of like, how do you fundraise? But the question was like, how do you spot passion?
Oh, got it. So I usually like, let's just say you're building a. I'm going to go simple NFT, indexing and analytics protocol. And so, like, if you're building that, I'm like, well, why? Why does that need to exist? And the things I'd want to hear are, hey, I had a problem. Like, I'm somebody who's really passionate about NFTs, and or I was trying to build another app that was just a side project to display NFTs and their metadata for XYZ purpose. And by the way, like the information that I wanted to use, so if I was trying to build something, the information I was trying to obtain wasn't available. Or if it's a personal thing, like, hey, I was trying to power trade NFTs and I just couldn't get this information, I thought it should be available to everybody. Like, I want a personal story as to why somebody's doing that is one. Or I just want like an absolute, authentic, deep answer, like, hey, this fucking market is massive. I'm a killer, and like I'm gonna go get it, and here's why. And by the way, I don't have experience in this space, but my demonstrated, experience in doing these last 2 or 3 things is so good. I accomplish everything I set out to achieve. And here's my track record for it. And I might still say, oh, okay, well, that's cool. Like, hey, let's talk in 2 to 4 weeks. I'd love to see what progress you make. And then, like, I want, like, in 2 to 4 weeks to see that you've come back with incredibly direct progress that proves not only are you a killer, but you're really excited about this specific thing. I'm speaking in somewhat generalities, but you get it.
I want to talk a little bit about like various milestones and different forms of traction for a little bit. So you guys invest at a variety of stages, pre-seed through Series A. But I want to like talk a little bit about the seed stage, because I think most founders at Launch House are either around that stage or nearing that.
How do you define that, by the way? Or how do the folks in here define it? Yeah. Anybody want to go with a seed stage definition? All right, your turn.
I think pre-seed is like you have an idea, right? And seed is like when you have a product and you want to hire people to start doing it.
I like it. By the way, the seed stage in crypto has now bled into A, and pre-seed's bled into seed, but that's accurate. Meaning, like in the burst, like you'd have an idea and you'd be asking for a $40 million valuation. By the way, that was like not the case for 2 months, and now people are sort of creeping back up to it.
So what type of milestones are you looking for someone at the seed stage? What sort of traction?
He explained it.
Tony, do you want to hit us with the...
Yeah, you have a product, you have maybe like a bunch of users, you demonstrate traction, and you need people to grow your company.
Beautiful.
Exactly. And you may not have found, what people would call like product market fits, particularly in Web3. And this is like, drink. I said Web3. So one thing that I will say about investing in crypto startups or Web3 startups in this cohort is that product market fit, one, is exceptionally fleeting. Two, it's often incentivized. So when you look at other successful products out there, understand that a lot of them have incentivized what looks like product market fit with tokens. So be very careful and nervous about that. Three, people have gotten wrecked so fast that the prospective customer base turns over incredibly fast if you're consumer facing, but even if you're business facing. I mean, we've seen many businesses blow up. And so, candidly, the base layer, that delivers a lot of these business and consumer apps aren't performing enough yet. And if you're doing an infrastructure business that serves, these apps and services, they may not exist. So a lot of the product market fit signals in Web3 and crypto are fleeting. By the way, that is I would argue, the benefit of somebody trying to raise a seed round in Web3. Investors typically will give you more leeway than they would a traditional tech startup. They'll look for metrics for sure. They will look for an early user base. They'll look for customers. They'll reference them. Diligence is getting back to what it should be. So diligence today is happening like it does in traditional tech, whereas for a year into last spring, it wasn't. But you will get leeway on some of the customer data, product market fit. What I think at the seed stage, you have to have something that's emergent that people are using or businesses are using or customers are integrating and adopting, and a good vision of how that gets you to the next milestone. And know that, milestones in crypto, like it's not like you're going to raise 5 rounds of capital most likely. Like a lot of these Web3 startups are going to have tokens. So the milestone could be one more round, or, hey, how do we get this out into a token that launches and a, theoretically, decentralized, participatory network. Okay. And so people will want, if you do plan to have a token as part of your seed stage raise, you damn well better have your really well thought out. You don't have to have the entire tokenomics worked out, but you better have like a light paper or white paper that describes at least conceptually how it'll work.
So I want to open it up for questions. So kind of get your wheels turning. Before I do, just like one last question, and it's kind of the common mistakes type of question that you've seen. So either yourself as a founder, a mistake that you've made in the past that you wish you hadn't, that you'd like to share with others, or alternatively, a common mistake that you see Web3 founders making these days that you wish you could course correct or shake in some sense. What would
so personal ones are don't go it alone. So moving away from like all the serious market stuff, just the personal stuff, like it's an intense journey. We'll back solo founders, but it's a really, really hard thing. And I think I would recommend, finding a partner for sure, in the journey. I didn't do that with the block. And when we went into a bear market, it got really intense and I ended up just not wanting to do that business for 10 years. So that's one thing. I would say with Web3 startups, again, the token thing is a big one. Just because, let's say you sell NFTs or, you're storing data in a decentralized database, or, you're writing to a blockchain for a specific reason, doesn't mean that you need a token. That's a big one. The next one is, if you are going to have one, not doing the legal, regulatory, and spending the money on like the best lawyers. Like that's a critical one. And the other one is building on a shit blockchain. Like just don't do it. If you want me to give my opinion, off the record, I'm happy to tell you where not to build. It's like, don't introduce like shitty blockchain risk into an already complex endeavor.
Awesome. So want to open it up for questions. I want to have everyone, if you may, share your name, one sentence about what you're building, and then the question, the best of our ability, like ask the type of questions that'll be really useful for the room. So Tony, you want to kick us off?
And you'll cut me off if I talk too
No, you're
long,
good.
because I want to make sure more questions now that I talk for that long.
Hi, I'm Tony, doing an NFT hedging product. I was wondering about, you mentioned about white papers, so I was just wondering, what do you think makes like a good white paper, and do investors actually like read them?
Yeah, so it depends on how you present it. So the good news is there's a range from concept paper, light paper, white paper, and you should only present to investors, to prospective customers, to prospective team members, to partners, what you believe is reasonable about the stage that you're at in your business. So, white paper is like in fact, if I look at some of the things companies we've invested in, I'm not even sure some of the most successful ones ever had white papers per se. So point being, there's no real definition. It's something that, you write down that like later people are going to reference. And if you're not holding to it, of course, like there's a good chance your thing's going to go zero. If you said this applies X and it doesn't, hey, or it's not coded in the contract, you're out of luck. So what I would say is, people are looking for is if you say, for example, for LinksDAO, okay? Like we have a concept paper because I don't have a full economic model of what, I'd probably have to explain what LinksDAO is, so I'm not gonna do that. But my point is, it's a golf, just imagine like you can play to earn golf and other, fun leisure sports in the real world and then online and perhaps earn tokens, okay? This is being recorded, we might have to cut this part. But the point is, I haven't fully fleshed out, and the team hasn't fully fleshed out what the economics of that system look like. So at this point, we could raise a seed round. We may or may not have. And we've only presented a concept paper, meaning, here would be, these are the pillars of what this token theoretically could present. It could be a utility token that allows people to purchase, merchandise, to purchase rounds of golf, to purchase other things. It's a token where if people play a round of golf, they earn X number of tokens. If they play with somebody else, within the community, they earn more. My point is general concepts. Here's the burn mechanism and why the token won't inflate to, infinity. But, if you're going to do a token, if you're part of your pitch is, we are going to be on mainnet, or we're going to have a public token in 6 to 9 months, you need more than that. You need something that shows demonstrable economics. The good news is, and you should look for this in firms that you're raising from, and I say this somewhat self-interestedly, as we have a 2-person research team and 3 interns working on research. I would say a third of crypto VC firms now have really talented have really talented engineering firms where nobody calls themselves a token economist or token economics. It's a silly term, but they have great engineers and researchers and mathematicians who can help you with the design of a great economy. So don't overdo it yourself if you're not ready, okay?
Dave.
Dave Corliss, building Shelf Tower, a sports betting community. Thinking about kind of pulling those seed runs together. You talk about leading rounds, co-leading rounds. A lot of times seed runs got 7, 8 parties kind of trying to put together. How do you recommend kind of herding those cats and kind of, do you find that lead first and, get some more referrals in? Or, how do you think about kind of pulling them together?
Yeah, great question. So there's certainly no one size fits all. The ideal platonic raise is you go to market. So sorry, you put everything together. Your company's protocol or project is doing great, and you go out, and this betting protocol is raising. Okay, you're raising 4 on 20. I'm just making up a number, and it's crystal clear. You have a demo of the product. And or you have a great Figma and a lot of like code that's working, blah blah blah. You got a whippersnapper of a deck, and you go out. You've got an introduction. So the strategy here is you want to time box your raise. Okay, you get one shot to go out with real momentum, and investors talk, so they know your company's in market the moment it's in market. It's a small world. I know there's a lot of investors. I know there's a lot of money flowing around, but it's a small world. And so immediately, once you send out that first doc send, always send it out in doc send or some similar thing where you can track who's opened it. It's fine if people send it. Don't restrict it. Don't ask for an NDA. That's an instant delete. The bottom line is you get it out there. Okay, you start to get some meetings, and let's say you get some interest, which is your question. The best, so what I would suggest is that you don't have like 15 advisors on an advisor page. Don't have all the stuff like, that's my advice. It's I roll. I do think if you can, prior to starting to send out the deck, get commitments from some really credible people in betting. Hey, the founder of, somebody from DraftKings or FanDuel, or hey, we've got these 4 angel investors. Like those signals matter a tremendous amount. So that's a starter. Oh, and so you're going to reserve allocation. You tell people, hey, I've got these 4 incredible angels and we're reserving allocation for more. So, okay, now investors are like, oh, that's amazing. So the insider, thought leader, brilliant people are investing. Okay, next you go out, you pitch everybody. You'll immediately know if there's demand for your thing. If there's not, reconsider. This is assuming there's some demand. Immediately, so you should have a list and you should identify who you think the leads are. And in a platonic world, you should identify a lead as soon as possible, okay? And you should try to get multiple leads. When they ask you, are you looking for a lead, a co-lead, say, look, yeah, we're looking for a lead or a co-lead. Like literally don't answer the question, meaning like lead or co-lead, unless you're like dead set on it for some reason that may make sense to you. But sure, lead or co-lead, yep, and we'd love you. And here's why we think you're great, and have a custom story for everybody. And because you're only talking to people that you think are good. We're not desperate here. As soon as you get desperate, like good luck. But yes, this is why we want you. Talk to a bunch of people. Some people will soft commit. Call them on it. Be like, okay, meaning they're not willing to lead, but like come back to us when you have a lead. And be like, cool, like what's your check size? Like be a gentle soft commit. If they do and they're good names, you can talk about that and ask them, hey, can I mention that you're like soft committed, like really excited to work with you, make them feel really good about themselves, and hey, thanks for soft committing. I've done this, by the way, a few times. And you just say, okay, great. And but yeah, you should try to get a lead or a co-lead really fast. I would not recommend, or not really fast. You should try to get the right lead or co-leads in a reasonable amount of time. But that is, I would argue, the core of a successful, not a successful company, but if you've chosen a venture capital route to how you plan to fund your company long term, yes, I would say a party round is not a good indicator of having control of your funding environment, your cap table, and how you plan to, raise and deploy capital into, a project in the long run. People want to see, for signal, clarity on raise. So I would look for a lead or a co-lead in an early round. I would take, I would take some valuation downdraft if I had to get a great lead if you can find one, or co-lead. And this is like empirical. You will see it if you look at just the company. Like we'll often invest at X, and then 4, 6, 9, 12 months later, you'll see a big markup, and the tier 1, meaning like Sequoia or Paradigm, will follow in, or A16Z. So if in the party rounds, particularly in a bear market, the risk is there's nobody left to defend you if things don't work out, and there's no signal that anybody had conviction on you at the pre-seed or seed stage. So you're kicking the can down the road on doing that really hard thing of getting an advocate like me, or one of these other partners from a VC firm who's going to say, yeah, like I put my capital and reputation on the line and committed significant capital to have 10% of this company versus throwing in a small check experimentally for 1 or 2%.
Victor.
Thanks, my name is Victor. I'm building Stripe for DeFi. So we're building a DeFi infrastructure to connect that to the Web3 financial institution to DeFi. I have 2 questions. First is following up on yours. I just finished Techstars the other day from Europe. David Cohen actually did. He says that do not ask for lead investing because nobody will. If you have that signal, he says that it means that you're not ready because lead investors will look for you. It's the other way around. Which is why when you mentioned this, kind of like this totally polarized message, right? That's why I just want to listen from the top. Because David Cohen, Techstars, big name, right? So but anyway, just maybe different point. That's the whole question number 1. And question number 2, I'm struggling with this, right? In a book, I've raised.
Let me answer that one. That's old. So I want to make sure I understand it. So it was because like that, what you just said could mean a lot of things. Every company is looking for a lead investor. So, and every investor knows that. So I'm unsure what he's saying exactly.
Maybe
I don't know.
Yeah, we weren't there.
Good news
Let's go to the second
no, but
question,
it's a good thing. This brings up a really good point. A lot of investors out there. Make sure you go to a lot of these chats. You're going to hear a lot of different advice. David Cohen, I know him, very passionate, opinionated individual, just like myself.
The second question is a little more contradicting for me as well. In a bull market, yes, a lot of people, if you have a good idea, good economics, good team, and have a couple of investors lined up, people just write you a check. But in a bear market, the valuation matters too. Because we are raising seed round right now, so people are telling us, don't raise too much, try to under-raise so that you can go from it. But on the other side, some investors actually ask us, are you raising enough? Because it seems that you're asking for $1 million, but based on what you do, you should actually ask for 3. But we know that if you ask for 3, which means that we have the seed round, we're going to dilute.
It's very company specific. Yeah, that one's very company specific. It's hard to give generalized advice. The only advice that is relevant is, you should raise enough money where you think you can live, for a couple of years and probably a little bit longer. And I think too many folks in Web3 specifically are getting bad advice about optimizing for too little dilution. I hear people who are like, I'm the maximum dilution I'm taking is 10%. And I'm like, well, one, that's an instant turnoff because I'm like, well, that literally means nothing to me. Like, that's not telling me about the business, right? That means nothing about your customers. It means nothing about the product. So my point is very situationally specific, but don't say things like the maximum dilution I'll take is X, or, I need to raise 4, because I want a $20 million valuation. You'd be shocked, but people actually say stuff like that. Just, have a really, at least make me believe that you have a really coherent plan for why you need, $3-4 million bucks, and how many people you're gonna be able to hire, how many customers you're gonna be able to acquire, and what milestones you're gonna hit. They're gonna allow you to either raise again or hit profitability or get to your token raise.
Russ.
Hi, Russell. I'm actually a content creator over on TikTok and Instagram for finance and stuff. We like to sit in on these and learn.
Nice. Should we do a dance later?
Unfortunately, I just talk about the stock market, but if you want to teach, I'll learn.
Nice. I can't dance, so don't worry about it.
My question is, and this comes from the discussion of seed round and the fact that typically when you're raising a seed, we talked about how you have users and you want to start expanding. Now, this is even more significant in a bear market. For the record, I don't even know a ton about Web3. I know decent, but nothing crazy, not like these guys. How are you acquiring users in this market? How are you acquiring users in general? Just with your research, your time in the space, like what has worked for these companies that are coming out of the woodworks to kind of gain users?
Yeah, incredible question. So good news for you as a creator, as creators and influencers, has been one of the primary methods, and particularly in this Web3 is really small, to be honest. Not in terms of like dollars invested, not in terms of dollars transacted, but in terms of like significant people moving significant money or significant, and that's both on the consumer side, like OpenSea, whales are spending the most of the money, and on the business side, like Fireblocks or any of the big exchanges, whales are moving most of the money. So that's not true. Coinbase, for example, has done a healthy retail business. But in general, most businesses are operating within an area where influencers matter to marketing. I think that'll change over time. We are not at a point where there's clear, like rigorous customer acquisition channels in place. In fact, for example, I ran the block. Like we were blocked from like being able to run ads on many of the biggest platforms for a long time. So it's hard to market for many like crypto projects and companies. But one other thing I'll say, and I've been tweeting about this a little bit recently, many crypto projects have been terrific at bootstrapping supply generation, meaning, hey, somebody's running a node, somebody's providing your decentralized storage capacity. Been terrible in many cases at generating demand for that supply that's been created. And I think it's a wonderful, incredible area to focus. I'm certainly looking for that from an investment perspective, and have told many people that. And so, the fact that I don't have great answers for you in terms of where we can generate demand for products other than, hey, people who have developed credibility and have influence in the ecosystem, tells you about the maturation of it today.
I actually have a follow-up question based around influencer marketing. We've probably both received hundreds of people telling us that they want us to promote their crypto, coin, this, that, the other, and we ignore them all. We ignore all of them
Because promote would mean putting your name behind it, correct?
and they frame
Yeah.
it very specifically. So this isn't even so much a question, but it can open up the
Yeah. By the way, I get that in my inbox a lot as well. I mean,
so it says, they'll pay us in crypto, we'll promote it, and then when everyone wins kind of thing.
Mhm.
Do you have any advice for these guys on how to professionally reach out to influencers and professionally pay them for their service while still making them as influencers feel comfortable about accepting the project, especially us?
You know who would be great to do this is the Launch House network. I mean, we should have like a Launch House influencer network, right? Yeah, I mean, you guys literally have the credibility here to develop that. I think that it has to be we need clearinghouses for it. Like, I don't have good advice. So peer references is the best one, right? Like, I know the reason, one of the reasons people take money from me is that I know most of the influential people in the NFT space. Okay, once Dudas invests, you're 1 degree removed from those folks, and he'll help you because he cares about your project. He bet with his money and his reputation on it. That's what I would say is, like, if you have a project, find folks who know those influencers. DMing is a bad way. It's a waste of your time. It's just not a good channel as a project. Especially if it's a coin that's involved in it. If it's dollars, I don't know.
Doris.
I want to ask you, what is the difference for you between an infrastructure company and a protocol company? And the other question would be, if you were to prioritize which 3 blockchains you would deploy.
Great. So can I answer the first, then will you react? Just because that glass of wine, long walk, I'm having a good time. All right. So a protocol company, and what was the other word? Infrastructure. Great question. So protocol is an overused term, right? It's just like, a definition. It's who wants to define protocol, because I'm going to do it poorly. But it's just like basically a way to define how, messages or information moves. Like, what is actually the definition of protocol? Does anybody know off the top of their head? What's that? Yeah, it's like basically a set of rules that determine how something will happen. So protocol is like overused. It's a very generic term. And so basically, what I would say is a protocol, like you can have a messaging protocol, which basically, how the messages move between, from person X, from node A to node B is defined by a set of rules. So there are many protocols out there. Protocols, like, they can be behavioral, how we should behave, right? The rules of how we should behave here are a protocol. So the way that it's used in crypto is, I think it's kind of like been used to shorthand a blockchain. Like, hey, I'm gonna, we have these layer 1 protocols, we have these layer 2 protocols, we have roll up protocols, we have application specific protocols. But effectively, I think what many non-technical and or just the jargony way is, it's like used as shorthand for like the blockchain, meaning like the thing that records and validates like how these things move. Yeah, so infrastructure, when I think of that, great question. So what I say to people is we as a firm don't invest in layer 1 protocols, so layer 1 blockchains, right? Ethereum, Solana, like, it's not something, like, if somebody pitched me the next Solana tomorrow, we wouldn't invest in that. No, we did not invest in Mo. The CEO is one of my best friends. It was expensive. If it was cheaper, maybe as a friend I would have invested, but no. So we don't invest in layer 1 protocols. The infrastructure, when I say that, and again, it's another word that could mean many things, but what I mean there is things that help applications exist and deliver their service to the end user, whether it's a consumer, a business, etc. So infrastructure in my mind is like a wallet, a marketplace. It's something that like basically speaks to the protocols to get information. A wallet does, a marketplace does, that, you know, and then then provides sort of value to the end user. These definitions probably aren't great. So infrastructure could be, you know, things like fiat on off ramps. Like, how do I get my money, you know, into the crypto ecosystem? Okay, I might use a protocol to do that, but an infrastructure is sort of the company that sort of sits around it and makes it happen in my mind. And other things that are infrastructure are like identity, businesses and companies. So wallets, marketplaces, identity, storage, you know, indexing and data retrieval, just things that like basically make, I guess, the protocols more usable. And then you have applications. So I'm like, there's protocols, there's infrastructure, and then there's the applications themselves. And that's like, when I think of applications, and again, in my mind, the way we invest is like the things that like sort of in totality deliver that experience sort of to the end user. This is really non-technical, and my technical partner, Carl, would probably like have kicked me off stage already and like literally answered the question. There was a second question. I'm sorry. Oh, so the top three, and I'll just go with like the top three that we spend tremendous amounts of time and invest in are Ethereum, L1, Polygon, and Solana. That doesn't mean that there aren't other great, you know, blockchains that are either L1, L2, rollups, but you know, that's where we invest in the majority of, you know, projects, and that's where we see, you know, incredible developers. There are others for sure, Avalanche, Near, but just, you know, that's where we spend our time.
Cal?
Hi, this is you again, Cal. I'm a member of Launch House cohort, and I'm building 888 DAO for people in the Chinese diaspora, building a venture fund as well. Question is, I think LinksDAO really put your name on the map. I actually purchased the memberships for those as well. What is one thing you could have done, or you would have done differently for LinksDAO?
So for starters, taking a little more time. Actually, no, I wouldn't have. So let me back up there. Oh, okay. Here we go. So I would have recognized that there was going to be a devastating bear market and raised at a much more reasonable valuation back in February or March. We you know, raised basically a partial round, and you know, then like didn't close it, and then things kept coming down. Okay, that's one. By the way, we're fine on financing and have raised money, so we're good. Number two, I don't know if we would have spent a little more time between the concept and the mint to explain what we were doing. I'm very grateful that we did it so fast because we had so much momentum, and it allowed us to get members, to sell out, but it didn't give us enough time to develop like, so we're not really, we're called LinksDAO, but we're really like, like the DAO is really an advisory board. We didn't incorporate a DAO. So everybody who's deep into the project, including the community, knows this, but it's really complex to like explain that after the fact. And you know, honestly, it would be interesting. I don't know if we would have called it LinksDAO. We might have just called it like Links, an NFT project, and been like, this is going to be community driven, the community votes. DAOs are one of these things that are I really am struggling with right now. Like the word DAO, my thinking evolves like literally by the day. And it gets back to some of the things I've been saying earlier, where basically I'd rather see how you're using the technology than what you call yourself. There's a reason my hat says Links. You know, we are basically a community of NFT holders where the NFT holders get to vote on where the golf course is going to be. We haven't done that yet. Oh, the other thing is, you know, NFT, I would have basically told people, look, this is going to take some time. Please, like not like everybody's like, hey, when's this like token going to moon? like all these kinds of things. It's brutal. So if you're raising capital, and by the way, I have like DeFi projects we've invested in who are like, Dudas, we're doing an NFT launch. I'm like, no, and they still do it. And I'm like, why are you selling NFTs? Like, it's hard enough to run a business. Like, what are you doing? So these things live in the blockchain forever. This isn't a problem that we have with our project, but my point is, we raise from a community, so you have this intense complexity of community, corporate, how to make all those things work together. Anyway, but the one macro point is DAO. I don't know if I would have called it a DAO. Yeah, I think we would have said Links, maybe subtitle the golf DAO. And then we will decentralize and have a DAO, but that's like a couple years off. So it's been a challenge just to explain that. And for most people, if you call yourself a DAO, it wasn't for us just because I'm a VC and have like 15 accounts with Silicon Valley Bank. But it's really, really hard if you call yourself a DAO to get even a Coinbase account, to get banking. And you may be relegated to only being able to move money in this like outsider economy, like Gnosis safe to other things. So just be careful with that.
All right. I know we got a million questions.
Is he frustrated or excited? Wait,
Balash, do you have something?
I'm just saying that this is, I guess, everybody's trying to build, so like hopefully it's not a problem that you can't open a bank account.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are startups working on it. Like, I always like to hear the frustrated person's like, yeah, so yeah, I think I'd be happy to come back for another session on this. Like, I think it's a really important one, which is, like, I don't want to discourage folks. Like, we're investing in DAOs. We've invested in Vibe Bio. We've invested in a couple others recently. But if it's heavily dependent on whether you're going to basically be based in the United States, it's a increasingly served, segment, but not by far not a perfectly served segment. Okay, so best advice: don't listen to me up here talking about my project and telling you whether to be a DAO. Get a phenomenal lawyer, Cooley, Anderson, Kill, Latham. Like, I can give you, we can give you plenty of recommendations. Don't engage them until you've raised capital. They're expensive, or make sure you get the startup discount.
I want to do one more question, and I don't know how to do it equitably. I've seen your hand all night. You want to wrap us up?
Try to wrap on a fun note then. My name is Bhargav. I'm building a medical device for Parkinson's patients. My question is, you had an incredible career, Disney, YouTube, all these different places, being a founder yourself. How did you know when to sort of detach yourself from the idea or product you're building and kind of pivot to an adjacent space? From your experiences of building different things in Web3 or not?
Yeah, question there. Do you mean pivot within the startup you're doing, or pivot from I can't build startups anymore because I'm gonna like die if I work this hard?
I think that the other one, not.
Yeah. Again, that one's it's not a one size fits all. I can only answer that in the context of examples. So when I started the block, we were in a bull market. It's a media and research information business, and I thought it was going to be consumer facing. We immediately went into a bear market. There were no consumers around to read it. We quickly pivoted to become a heavily research intensive institutional information business. I mean, so it's like you have to basically read the market around you.
The fun part of the question though was, why do you call it 6 man? Why not the starting lineup?
Oh, good. I've been saying great question, but I don't know if that one is. Anyway, no, I'm kidding. So we are. So me and my partner who founded the firm, Serge, met at Stanford, and I basically played basketball about as well as it looks like I played basketball. But we were both huge super fans. Yep, I'm a nerd. And so we were like sleeping out. This is when Stanford was like in the Final Four and had #1 ranked basketball team. And the student basketball club was called the 6 Man Club. So it also, so that's where we met. So it had historical relevance to us. And, you know, a 6-man, somebody who comes off the bench to help, you know, isn't the star of the team, is somebody who's there to support. We will be relaunching our brand in September, and you know, we're going with 6MV. I don't think 6th man. We got enough men, you know, we got enough men in the spot, and we've backed enough men. We actually started the firm, and we're 4 white men. We've since hired non-white individuals and hired our first woman investment partner. And so we're rebranding as 6MV. We have a long way to go, but the spirit still stays. You know, the 6th man spirit, but 6th man in the name. And I know it sounds cheesy, and I'm like not like a woke person. I'm a, you know, very, I mean, just again, follow me on Twitter. I have strong opinions, very fair. You know, we're not changing the name for the sake of changing the name. Like, you cannot invest in Web3 and in this world and be like, you know, 4 white men and or be 6th man. It's like, you know, again, that spirit's cool. That was the history of the fund, but we're moving on. So.
Last question. So, parting advice that you have for folks this year, Web3 founders. Any last words?
Yeah, don't be afraid. Like, come on, be yourselves. Like, there's one thing I am, it's myself. I know, like, I'm being recorded, right? Like, I'm sure you could snip up like a minute and a half of this thing, and I'd look like the biggest fool on earth. You could probably run it straight, and I'd look like the biggest fool on earth. Point is, be yourself. Do what you love to do. By the way, it's going to be hard as hell. Don't be afraid to question yourself. Don't be afraid to be, like, I've been, by the way, so I should say this. I've been, you know, I've had clinical anxiety, you know, and that's, by the way, many of us who like start companies are driven by this anxiety, by this, you know, this unnatural thing, which can be harnessed as positivity, negativity, confusion, clarity, you name it. Just follow it and make sure that you have the people around you to help you and support you, like, on that goal. But again, like I said, don't be afraid. You got this. All right?
Let's go. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn up the music, kick back. We've hopefully got a little bit of leftovers, some drinks. I don't know how long we've got.
Yeah, I'll
Drinks,
stick
but
around
very cool,
to
so.
answer. My watch ran out of battery. So
7
that means
o'clock.
I don't know if my wife's
7
calling.
p.m.
Oh, 7 o'clock. All right, yeah. As long as I have a glass of white wine, I can stick around for a little
All
bit.
right, we got you with that. Thank you all. Cheers.
How are you? Any questions? How are you?
Great job as always.
Thank you.
My hands are incredibly sweaty, or else I would handle you guys.
Thank you, guys.
I heard that, yeah.
Thanks for letting me come out.
And what do you choose it for? Like, how would I use it? Oh, right, but how would I use it? So when you say hat, so, you know, I own some CryptoPunks. What will I do with that? Assume I'm a total dummy, because I am, and I don't work in financial markets. How does it tell me I get access to capital?
I take the place value of the cryptocurrency. I say, this is the amount of money you have to pay. Yeah. To ensure price the price. Yep. So, tight insurance.
How do I know you're going to be around?
Sorry?
How do I know you're going to be around?
So that's the problem I'm trying to internalize.
Yeah, I knew the answer to the first one. I'm just curious. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I mean, set it up. I wish I'd hedged my fund, because, like, by the way, it's a beautiful, what you're doing is a beautiful thing. Think about it. I desperately will always use a hedge because I am never selling that thing because it's like my identity. So you have a price advantage against me, but I still feel like I knew when that thing was 400K. Like, if I could have gotten some money for it, done X, Y, Z, I would have. I might have been wrong, but, like, I would have confidently hedged that thing at when it was 450. And again, never going to sell it. So, yeah. You take possession of it. Yeah. You just allow me to realize the value. There's some counterparty that's probably willing to make a dumb trade.
actually.
Oh yeah,
like,
I can't answer them all.
yeah. A lot, like you can understand. So what I'm building a learn-to-earn educational games where Gen Z can work with brands and use their loyalty programs. So I want to show that learn-to-earn, play-to-earn is not only about what we saw already. We worked a lot on economics. And what I see right now, I see new like marketing wave where you cannot compete like via marketing budgets, but where you compete via the value you bring to the community. So all Gen Z, we know that Roblox, Minecraft, they spend more hours there, and it's very cool to like collect all these insights for a gaming experience. But the question is not about all these low-hanging fruits. Like you work and instantly get rewards. Retention, like when we said retention will be zero. The question is about the right community building. Like we all talk about decentralized like marketing DAOs, but really like people cannot interact and influence on founders. Like if you launch it and if you see that your tokenomics like and you see that your tokenomics fails, like you cannot just like say to the community, to these players who like invested and staked, they like we're gonna build something new. Like wait, please. You have these tens of millions of users who step and say wait. The question is what to do when you fail with tokenomics. You already launched. Like how to interact with this community. Like what are the ways? What Stefan could do? Like
Well, Stefan hasn't failed.
like there's a lot of questions.
I mean, Stefan could just take all of the, $100 million of quarterly profit and buy a GST supply back out of it. I mean, so again, they're an exceptional case that's irrelevant to. So you're asking about a normal case where, like, people are still aggressively using it, they're growing users. Axie is a better example where, like, the economy's dead. It has now been dead, like, people aren't using it, or they're using it at literally zero money.
But for some of the regions, it's not zero money. Like for example, some regions in India, Southeastern Asia, like it's not zero money and still.
Then I think you just like do like anything else. Like the thing failed. Like I don't know. Has anybody answered this well? It's a great question. There's probably a startup.
So like I have an answer. Like I have an answer.
So you were positing. I like this.
No. Like I have the answer. Like I spent like 4 months.
I am going to set you up, Dudas. You've got an audience, and I've got the answer. I love it.
So like,
so what's the answer?
I'm the mathematician. Like,
so how do I help these fuckers who are pissed
yeah.
off,
I
down
know.
bad?
No. I talk with these fuckers. To be honest, I talk. So the thing is that
trust me, everybody reaches out to me in any investment I've ever been in or not been in, and be like, Dudas, I'm losing money.
So like, what I see right now, using this. Like,
what do I tell them? I want to use your simple method
I can
make my money back.
I can boost loyalty programs from brands by simple gaming experience.
But only failed brands?
Not only failed, like even like predicted failed also.
Alright.
So like I just understand how like even stepping in
That is fascinating. I don't have a response to this, but I'm interested.
Like I can show you response. I have like
now, but
like I will
can't be doing demos right now.
No.
But if you can show me how you can turn around Axie so that
like our model is based on the really very simple things. These players they can collaborate and improve the quality of these products.
well, then fucking get them together. Let's call the Axie Union.
No,
We don't need VC funding. Let's go take some money.
No, I'm building this up actually to like fix this bridge between education and liability, not just to play, to say, but my like what I'm passionate about. I was declined many times by these old psychologists. They said you are stupid, you aren't gonna be good at physics and math. Then my physics teacher showed me films, and I just decided to study physics because I wanted to understand films. The thing is about role models. If you show inside the game good role models, then you can like help all these.
That's a good pitch.
You can help.
You should do that. Talk to all of them and be like fucking Axie.
Like when it starts already,
Let's
of Stefan already.
Yeah, drop it in the. Let's drop this into like the onboarding. Okay, good.
Yeah, so.
Alright, will you send me?
I will
That's a
send
better
you.
pitch. Start with
No,
that.
I will send you. If you are interested, I will send you the answer how to get your money back from all these play-to-earn games.
I thought we moved away from that pitch. Here's how you play better.
Yeah, no, we'll play better.
Good.
it's about me.
There we go, there we go. So essentially, what it
Make it super bigger because I think we're not this decentralized community. We're like
I want to be inclusive of every man who wants to talk to me.
awesome.
Now, anyway, no, it's not.
it's gonna be hard. I don't think the market may do it. I think it's like
For us, like, yeah.